Fathers, fairness, and the future of family in Japan. The truth is, as it stands now, fathers pay and mothers decide. We're going to be looking right now about what's going to happen if the laws in Japan change for divorce. Divorce rates are going up, and it doesn't seem obvious by looking at the numbers because actually the marriage rates are going down severely. So the divorce rates are going up, marriage rates are going down, which is putting everybody in a bit of a sticky situation. We may have heard there are a lot of changes coming about in law and that divorce law will be changing. We're accepting joint custody next year, apparently. We'll see what happens with that. And according to the Japanese Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare, the number of divorces in Japan last year was 179,000 couples. I just want to pause on that number for a second and think about the amount of children who have had to go through extreme hardship because of 179,000 couples breaking up and going through divorce last year. It's never easy on the kids. It's not easy on the parents, for God's sake. So 179,000 people went through this troublesome procedure here in Japan last year, and the rate is increasing. Right now, and it's not a solid amount, the divorce rate in Japan is about 34% for domestic marriages. That's Japanese on Japanese marriages. 34% of all of those marriages are ending in divorce right now. But when it comes to foreign marriages, when it comes to a Japanese national marrying a foreigner, the divorce rate goes up to 50%. That means if you're marrying a Japanese person as a foreigner, the chances of you succeeding in your marriage after having kids and building a house is 50%. 50-50. Just let that sink in for a second. The Japanese domestic amount is 1/3. So 1/3 of all couples end in divorce. But if you're a foreigner marrying a Japanese person and you're going into this international marriage, then it's half. Half of all marriages end in divorce. With government support increasing and politicians like Kimi Onoda pushing harder for more sanctions on men, making sure men are paying child support and more support. The government is offering more support for women, more financial incentives, and even now financial incentives to get married and have kids. You can get money from the government in Japan for getting married and having kids. But the marriage rate is going down. And why is it going down? In Japan at the moment, there's more of a fresh wind coming in where Japanese women are feeling that they can be independent, that they want to work for that career, they want to save their own money, they're not so interested in childbearing, and they want to carve out a life for themselves where they can be independent and strong. On the flip side, a lot of men are afraid of getting married because they've heard the stories of men being burned financially, emotionally, and losing contact with any kids that might happen in the marriage. So to summarize, we've got women wanting to be more independent, to do their own thing, to stand up for themselves, to work out and carve out their own careers, and less thought towards childbearing. We've got men who've heard the stories of other men being burned, who are afraid to commit financially, who are afraid to have children, and it's contributing massively to the dwindling population and the lack of marriage, and therefore also the lack of birth rate in Japan. I think the numbers last year for babies being born in Japan was about 650,000, and it had gone down from the previous year. And it puts the Japanese average at about 1.12 or 1.2% of children per woman in Japan, which is staggeringly low. So talking about Kimi Onoda, in part 1, we looked at how she had to prove her Japaneseness on paper before she was allowed to proceed forwards going into office. And there was a lot of people kicking up a stink about that. And in part 2, we looked at new child support reforms that she's trying to roll out laws that will make fathers responsible for child support, and even having the government take money directly out of fathers' accounts to make sure the child support payments are going through. And those systems will be enforced by the law if they go through. So why are these things happening now, and why is it such an important conversation? Well, because the Japanese civil law hasn't changed for decades, and it's all been based around post-war rhetoric where the father was the breadwinner and the mother stayed at home to rear the kids and look after the house. And that law just hasn't changed. It's to support the women who don't have an income. But now we see more and more dual income families, and women are carving their own way in their careers and earning, in some cases, just as much as men. And And so in a divorce situation, there's less of a need for fathers to be strung on the hook. And of course, I agree that child support needs to be paid because we have to be responsible and look after our children. But it needs to be fair. And I think that's what the next step is got to be, a fairness, so that both the mother and the father are both working together for the benefit of the children. The government's going to attempt to modernize the law, but I don't think they've got enough people to get behind it yet. And I'm talking about workers, people working in those civil court offices who are going to be the infrastructure behind any law changes. And especially with joint custody coming in next year, part of that is because of pressure from the Hague Convention, which Japan is a member of, pressure from foreign countries with child kidnapping, I'm sure, putting Japan on to the global face of the media in a lot of these documentaries that have happened where fathers have been chasing after their children who have been taken back to Japan with very little luck, and mothers too in some circumstances. There are some examples from Australia where mothers have lost their children to Japanese husbands who have just taken the children away after divorce. There are cases on both sides, but the majority of the cases we're seeing are on the father's side, where the father has lost visitation. They are unable to see their kids anymore, and there's nothing in the Japanese legal system to back fathers up and help put that back together. At least nothing that can be actually enforced by law. Basically, there's no punishment for mothers who are denying visitation of the children to the fathers. As you can see by the numbers of the divorce rates, there is a rise in single mothers. I'm very sad that my own relationship didn't work out, because I believe that a father and a mother are both necessary in the upbringing of a child. And I have that experience based on the fact that I was raised by a single mother. And did I miss my father? Yes, there were times when I missed having a male role model in my life. There is definitely evidence in my life where that has had a knock-on effect and has created the person that's sitting right here, right now. And there are places in my life that I think I could have been better had I have had that male role model in my earlier life. So right now, let's imagine that Kimi Onoda's laws go forwards and that fathers are made to pay like a credit card style debt. Whereas if they miss child payment, it's going to be adding up and they're going to have to take it, and the government's going to dip into their bank account and take it directly if they don't pay it. If that happens, I want to see what's going to happen on the other side of the fence. What is going to make mothers accountable for making sure they uphold visitation and allow fathers to have visitation? Because there's no joint custody in Japan, and there hasn't been for all these decades. Japan is very new to this idea where the parents are sharing responsibilities of raising children within a 1-week time frame. It's always been this system where, as a father, you can see your kids, you can visit them on a Sunday for 2 hours once a month, or for 2 hours once every 6 months. And this idea of you take the kids to school on Monday, I'll pick them up and they'll stay at mine Monday night and I'll take them on Tuesday. This idea of give and take, pass ball, and really being there for the children, and sometimes coming together to go and watch events and at least being amicable together. And I think a lot of the parents who do joint custody successfully, they do become amicable. And there are some cases where they fall back in love again. I mean, but there are some cases where, they realize that they're not going to work as a relationship, as a love couple anymore, but they can be totally amicable between each other, and especially they can be there together when it comes to making sure that the kids are good and ready to go. And that's something that we just haven't seen a lot of in Japan in the eyes of the law, the structures to put that in place. And we have seen a lot of situations where Japanese people are able to kind of work it out and see each other. But on the majority, there's still a lot of loss of face and ego involved with these breakups, which causes perhaps for ease, perhaps for a deep-seated resentment after divorce, which prevents these parents from working successfully together to provide a joint custody and dual parenting relationship. And there's also no counseling available for that, no official government subsidized counseling, counselors to help fathers after they lose their children, to help mothers that don't want to see their ex-husband's face anymore, but where there has not been domestic violence. I mean, of course, if there's been domestic violence, I don't think that, that they should have to meet each other. I think that's a different case, and that should be dealt with as a separate case. But in general, where there has not been domestic violence and there's no big issue and both father and mother are decent people, then this idea of not wanting to see my ex, and so therefore I'm not going to connect them with the children, needs to kind of disappear. And I think counseling is a big part of that in some cases, but there just aren't those systems in place really to the scale that there needs to be right now in Japan. So as you can see, there are some flaws in the system that I think can be worked through. And over time, and we understand that Japan takes things slowly, and there's a lot of paper pushing and a lot of hanko stamps to be stamped. And so we understand it takes time. And I also hope that Kimi Onoda is able to get the wheels rolling so that we are pushing in a forwards direction. Having men being held accountable and made to pay child support is fair for the children, as long as on the other side of the fence, women are also being made to allow visitation and not go around the back of the stage and into the grey area. The truth is, as it stands now, fathers pay and mothers decide. We as fathers are on a level lower. As soon as we go into court, as soon as the mother has left the house with the kids, they're up here and we're down here in the eyes of the law. And it shouldn't be that. We should not be going into a divorce negotiation or mediation where the tables are so unbalanced. And if we do anything to make this side angry, then we get even more down. And basically, who's suffering? It's always visitation. It's always visitation. And I'm going to do another video about some of the tactics and the ploys that are used in mediation, in divorce, in order for the women's side to get what they want and push the divorce through successfully at the expense of the father. So if any of this interests you, please follow, drop a comment if you have some similar experiences in all this. I'm trying to build a community around divorce in Japan, divorce globally, how that we can be stronger, how we can be good as fathers, and especially how we can get through these harrowing situations. Because somebody said to me the other day, and thanks so much for all the comments so far, it's been amazing. Somebody said to me the other day, the pain of losing your children can only really be understood by the people who actually go through it. And I somewhat agree with that, because it's a pain that I could never imagine before. And I had a lot of friends that were going through this pain, going through divorces, losing their kids, not being able to see their kids, while I was still happily married with my kids. And I felt sad for them, but I never really understood the physical pain, the emotional burden, the anxiety that comes with losing your children. So, Kimi Onoda, if you're going to put men on the hook for finances and making sure we're paying our child support, which I am, please make sure that women are on the hook too for ensuring that fathers can see their children, because there's a lot of fathers having a lot of a hard time here in Japan right now and all around the world when they cannot see their kids, when lies are made up about them, and they are working all the hours God sends just to keep themselves stable, to start again from zero and support their children. So, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.